So, the Nintendo Switch is now 2 years old, and, in short, I think it's safe to say it's doing pretty good. Last year I made a video talking about how the Switch was on its way to success, and how its Play Anywhere concept was likely to give it the edge it needed regarding multi-platform games. Since then, it's been just about a year since I got a Switch myself, and I've been having an insane amount of fun with it. But have the expectations brought forward in 2018 for Nintendo's hybrid console been met throughout the year? As the Switch starts its 3rd year into 5th gear, what's the state of the Nintendo Switch in 2019? Hello everybody, my name is Skullkid, and in this month's discussion video, we're going to be talking about the current state of the Switch, where it's headed, and what sort of year it had in 2018. From Nintendo's own game lineup to the many amazing indie games and surprising amount of AAA games coming to the console this year, we've got lots to talk about, so let's get started. Anyways, right before we get started with the video, if you're new here to Skullkid Gaming, I'm currently doing monthly discussion videos about Nintendo gaming and whatnot. I'm also doing weekly Let's Plays from amazing indie games to Zelda and everything in between, so if that sounds like your fancy, don't hesitate to check out the channel, and don't forget to subscribe to encourage more videos like this one, and become part of this small, lovely gaming community. Okay, but back to our portable Mario making machine, it would probably be an understatement to say that the Nintendo Switch is doing good. With the recent Nintendo Direct and Pokemon Direct, the lineup of games for 2019 is starting to get a little out of hand. Like, is Nintendo trying to make a hole in my wallet? Let's not get out of hand just yet though, cause before I go crazy about the future of Nintendo Switch, I just wanted to take a couple seconds to reflect on the console's 2nd year. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, cause, to be honest, even if the Switch did great in 2018, it wasn't really an eventful year as a whole. We saw games like Kirby Star Allies in March, and mostly Wii U ports like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Hyrule Warriors, and Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. However, we got to see the potential that the Switch could unleash with Nintendo Labo, even if not necessarily a massive commercial success. But at the end of the year, we were all amazed with the release of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee right before the holiday season. Even with a bit of a lackluster year in terms of system sellers, Nintendo still managed to sell close to 20 million Switch units last year alone. Keep in mind that the Wii U only sold 13.5 million in its lifetime. What arguably made 2018 worse for longtime Nintendo fans, aka Wii U owners, was that almost half of the first-party release schedule was based on ports of the Wii U. It could also explain why sales remained steady, because of newcomers who hadn't experienced those games yet. So, taking fan concern from 2018 into consideration, since the beginning of January people were screaming for a Direct, wishing to have an idea of what Nintendo had in stock for us in 2019 after the weak release schedule in 2018. And let me tell you, Nintendo finally delivered in February, and oh boy, box boy, it sure didn't disappoint. The amounts of announcements we had in this Nintendo Direct were honestly crazy. So the Nintendo Direct started off with the announcement of Super Mario Maker 2. Of course, I think this is a game we were all looking forward to, but just to show us that Nintendo is always listening to fan feedback, the trailer for Super Mario Maker 2 opened with them showing us slopes and an array of amazing new features that I'll be excited to get my hands on. Of course, we got some more info on games like Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Daemon X Machina, and all the Final Fantasy ports coming in the next few months. We got some surprise reveals for games like Astral Chain, which looks really cool and promising. We also got things like Box Boy and Box Girl, Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, and quite surprisingly, Hellblade, a Microsoft-published game. And of course, that's not even mentioning the announcement of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker DLC, which I don't think anyone was expecting, but it fits really well into Nintendo's new vision of having better ongoing support for games with DLC. Oh, and did I mention Tetris 99? The game that everyone is apparently addicted to now. I still haven't played it, so, let me know down in the comments what you personally think about it. And if all that wasn't enough for you, the Direct ended with the announcement of a Zelda Link's Awakening remake. Of course, I'm leaving lots of stuff out because, from what I can tell, that Direct featured 28 game announcements. So if you're not caught up on this and you want to know what you can expect to play this year, you should probably go check it out after this video. Now, if you watched that Direct, you may have noticed in terms of games with confirmed release dates coming from Nintendo, we don't really have anything to look forward to before June other than Yoshi. Now, the reason why 2019 is looking like an amazing year is not only because of the already great games with release dates like Mario Maker 2 or Astral Chain, but we still have a huge amount of games announced at E3 or at previous Directs that still have that generic 2019 release date. So assuming these games don't get delayed and actually come out in 2019, it leaves people to speculate if there might be another Direct before E3 with some major releases coming before June. So with that said, I think we should take a look at all the games slated for 2019. Just quickly mentioning again the games from the Direct, we have Yoshi's Crafted Worlds, Super Mario Maker 2, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Astral Chain, Daemon X Machina, Zelda Link's Awakening, and, more recently, Pokemon Sword and Shield. That's already a lot, but if you start counting all the ones from E3 and other Directs, you also have Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion 3, Town, Yokai Watch 4, and maybe possibly Bayonetta 3? We don't know exactly, but let's just pretend that it's happening in 2019. And that's not even counting the slew of AAA games like Mortal Kombat 11, or indie games like Untitled Goose Game, which I'm sure lots of people are also dying to play on Switch. That's a lot of games. Weirdly though, most of the games with a solid release date seem to all be releasing in the summer, but what can we expect throughout the rest of the year? Well, here's what I think Nintendo's release schedule could look like this year. I'm taking the liberty here, and we're gonna try to speculate where all these games could fit in, ones with release dates, ones without, and maybe we'll have a better idea of what we can expect right here in 2019. So we open things up with an obvious one, Yoshi's Crafted World, coming out on March 29th. And of course, this isn't like a huge system seller, but it's our first big Nintendo game in 2019. Now, I did a bit of research and I found that Yokai Watch 4 has been announced for the Nintendo Switch this year in 2019. I vaguely remember seeing footage for it, so I guess it can't be too far down the line. So I was suggesting that since we don't have any big things confirmed until June, that being Mario Maker 2, this could maybe be a good April or May release. I know Yokai Watch has this sort of thing where they really seem to be spamming out a lot of the games pretty quickly. Like, the first Yokai Watch was what, like 2 years ago? I don't know. Although Yokai Watch 3 released like this month on 3DS, I don't know if that really changes anything. I mean, it's coming out on Switch, so it's a bit different. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Next up on the list, I've put more of a hope than an actual expectation, and that's Animal Crossing in May. I don't think it's super likely there, because I feel like if it was coming this close to now, we would already have it announced, and it's probably not ready. And lastly, this seems like a game that fits very well for E3, right? So they should probably keep it for there. But that being said, Animal Crossing is a pretty good spring release, I guess. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, it's possible that we get it in December, just because it could be ready by then. But as you're gonna see, I have so many games crammed in those couple last months that I feel like they would, space them out, even if it means putting Animal Crossing in early 2020. Also in May, I put Town, the game that's being developed by Game Freak, who, of course develops Pokemon. We've already seen footage of it, it's been confirmed for 2019. Does it feel ready yet? I don't know, so it could be coming out in December, but it's already crammed there, so maybe May or December would be the best options for Town. And of course, this one is possibly coming in 2020, but we hope that Nintendo's gonna respect their deadlines this year. They haven't actually been so good in 2018 to do that. Of course, their first year, everyone was commending them for having done such a great job on that. Anyways, we'll have to see. Town looks interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. And finally, one that we're definitely sure is happening, just not sure exactly quite when, we have Super Mario Maker 2 coming in June. This should be, of course, really exciting, lots of cool possibilities. That's gonna be a huge system seller for Switch. Mario Maker 2 is just gonna be great, okay? For everyone around the board. But right after, we have Fire Emblem 3 Houses, July 26th, so of course this is pretty exciting. We know a decent amount about the game, and this is pretty much its final release date, so we can look forward to that. But then, it's followed by our surprise recent reveal Astral Chain, which already has a firm release date, even though it was just announced, of August 30th. This looks very intriguing. Looks like a really cool action game. Moving on, because we have a lot to talk about, we have Daemon X Machina, which is currently slated for summer. This could fit well maybe in between Fire Emblem 3 Houses and Astral Chain, because I mean there's a fairly decent gap and that would fit the summer timeline pretty good, and I don't really feel like it would be a great game in September, especially because my next point, I think we'll see Luigi's Mansion 3 coming in September, because it's a smaller game, I guess you could say. That being said, also, it's always been a little spooky game, so it would be good if it releases before Halloween. And then, I think we're gonna get Zelda Link's Awakening in October, because it's only a remake. Historically, we've seen a bunch of these games come out around October, thinking about Link Between Worlds or Triforce Heroes, things like that, October, November. But the reason why I don't think we're getting it in November is because Pokemon Sword and Shield were recently announced for late 2019, and we know what that means. That probably means October, November. If they say late 2019, it's probably because they still feel like they have lots to do on it, so it might be coming out more in November like Pokemon Sun and Moon did, rather than October like X and Y did. Since I don't feel like it would go as far as December, because this is one that really hits hard for the holidays, for Christmas, and you want to get it out as early as possible around there, but at the same time with a good polished game, so November seems like a good date for that. And finally, my last game here on the 2019 release schedule is Bayonetta 3, which I think could release in December. We don't know anything about this. I'm not even sure it's officially confirmed for 2019, and we haven't heard lots of it from Platinum Games, strangely enough, because we've had a new IP from them. But regardless, assuming it was ready, they would probably try to space it out from their other game, Astral Chain, anyways. So yeah, this could potentially release in December. Seems like we would see this at E3 this year, and maybe it's just gonna come out in 2020, so we'll have to see for that. But anyways, enough talking about that release schedule. I'm probably stretching it a little too long. Point is, there's an insane amount of games coming out this year. Of course, there's a lot of speculation, but I feel like most of this feels plausible. So, other than the months of April and May, Nintendo really seems to have games crammed in every corner. But assuming you already had time to play all of that, we still haven't covered indie games. Now, not only is the Switch an amazing place for all sorts of great high-quality indie games, but the Switch has honestly come to a point where the Switch is self-sufficient with indie games and AAA games alone. It doesn't really need to rely on Nintendo. Of course, I'm talking in a theoretical standpoint, because, I mean, the Switch just wouldn't be the same without that Nintendo magic. But the Switch is no longer fully relying on Nintendo themselves, unlike during the Wii U era, where essentially not only was Nintendo's work split between the Wii U and the 3DS, but when there was no Nintendo game on the Wii U was for the most part on a stall until the next big game. But all of that is different on the Switch, because the Switch has continuous indie game releases. Practically every week there's a big indie game that we feel like is worth our time. And of course we always have some big hitters Like, for example, last year we had Celeste and Overcooked 2, just to name a couple. We have so many great games on the Switch at this point, and it keeps a steady flow of games coming your way so that Nintendo doesn't really have to release one every month and have people get bored of their Switches. In terms of AAA games, the Switch has also been doing a pretty good job. Like when you thought of the Wii U, you didn't think of it as the system you bought to play Batman Arkham Origins, but that was a release game for it. But when you look at the Switch, you might be thinking of it as the system that allowed you to finally play Skyrim on the go. And of course that's the biggest advantage with the Switch, is you can bring those multi-platform games on the go. And that's not even to mention multiplayer with the Joy-Cons, or making use of all the Switch's exclusive features. Nintendo has finally realized that indie games is an essential part of their market, and that's where they take the edge over the other big companies. Indie games on Nintendo Switch are now what makes the Switch stand out as a console. And the fact that the Switch is starting to have most of the games that other systems are getting, plus some exclusive indie games, or for example Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battles, and of course Nintendo's very own games, and all that, added with the portability of the Switch, makes it the ideal place to play pretty much any game. Now, another big change in Nintendo this year with the Switch is the perception that people are now having of Nintendo. If we take the example of my friends who are pretty much as equally interested in video games as I am, we definitely see a shift in perception towards Nintendo. At the very least, since the Wii era, Nintendo has sort of had this image as a family-friendly company, a console that people would usually associate as a place to play fun, kiddie games. And when the Wii U failed to appeal to that casual audience, it still maintained that weird aura of that console meant for kids. People who weren't already in the realm of Nintendo didn't really feel any sort of appeal to join during the Wii U era. And all that, even if the console technically still released at first, with lots of games that you'd maybe associate to Xbox or to PC, like, as I said, Batman, Arkham Origins, or even Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Those were on Wii U when it first launched. But for non-Nintendo fans, the Wii U didn't seem all that exciting, because it just seemed like a console with only a couple of games that appealed to children. Now with the Switch, Nintendo has finally taken a completely different stance. That, of course, being mostly in their marketing. Their marketing used to mostly be targeted towards specific demographic, that being kids and families. And for the Switch, Nintendo hasn't tried to pinpoint a demographic. Nintendo decided really to just show the product and show what it does. They tried to really avoid that whole family image. Not necessarily shying families away from the Switch, just saying that the Switch appeals to everyone. So instead of people having all these prejudice that the console is made for kids, or a particular demographic, people simply think of it as a portable console with a good diversity of games. Now, let's get back to the example of my friends. During the Wii U era, people like my friends probably had a fairly bad perception of Nintendo because of all the reasons I mentioned above. They mostly played PC or PlayStation or things like that. When the Switch first came out, they didn't really have a huge appeal for it because they still associated it to Nintendo's past history. But after a while, just seeing what the Switch can do, seeing games like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, they decided to finally jump on board. And honestly, this seems to be something that I see commonly everywhere. Seeing people who never played much Nintendo grab a Switch. I've seen people who got a Switch to play Zelda for the first time, not because it was branded Zelda, but just because it looked like a cool game they wanted to play. And now me and my friends, we play Smash Bros. And Overcooked, and we talk about our progress in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and we just talk about the Switch almost on a daily basis now. You can definitely see that people are finally making this change in perspective towards Nintendo, and honestly that's what's gonna allow the Switch to advance much further than ever. So by this point, I think it's fairly obvious that I think the Switch is well on its way to being one of Nintendo's best-selling consoles, and the Switch has so much going for it, it's hard to deny it. So really, what's the state of the Switch in 2019? Ultimately, it's a good time to be a Switch owner. Nintendo has lots of games lined up for us, even if it might be a little scarce before June. And now more than ever, developers are considering the Switch as a great opportunity, and are putting lots of effort to bring over resource-intensive games, or their own very unique indie game. The Switch has now become the indie platform of choice, with many of those games selling much more on the Switch. Of course, helping the indie developers in the process, and allowing us to play indie games in innovative ways or on the go. So, with all that taken into consideration, I think it's fairly obvious the Switch is doing better than ever. 2019 seems like it's going to be an amazing year for Switch fans around the world, and I can finally be proud to consider myself a Nintendo fan. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this month's discussion video. Let me know down in the comments below what game you're most looking forward to playing in 2019. Personally, I can't wait to get crafty with the endless new possibilities in Mario Maker 2. Don't forget to check out those videos right there in the corner, I'm sure you'll love them. So anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider giving it a like and share it with your friend who still doesn't have a Switch to play Smash Bros with you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Skullkid Gaming for more monthly discussion videos and all things gaming right here on Skullkid Gaming. Have a great day everybody, and I hope to see you in the next video.